Welcome to the Environmental Awareness Show with Dean Val and Dean Kevin. And today I'll start with primary water again. We'll end this segment with Dr. Stephan Riess interview. I'm going to play the end of this interview that we've been playing for the last 2 weeks about primary water. He's the fellow that initiated the phrase, primary water. He coined that phrase, and again, it's water that comes up through the fissures and the cracks in the earth that is made down there in the Earth's mantle and seeps up through as vapor up through these fissures. That's where we get our atmosphere from. Now, I talked to somebody yesterday, another organization that drills and surveys for primary water, the Earth Organization. It's in LA. And actually very few people know about this and are actually drilling and surveying for primary water. So this is one of the few organizations that are doing it. Now they call the water deep surface water for a purpose. Dr. Stephan Riess calls it primary water, and so does his protege, Paul Power, Mark Burr, of Primary Water Technologies, and others, a few others, that trained under Stephan Riess. Well, this outfit is calling it deep surface water because they tried to get a hold of the technology of how to find this water through Paul Power, and because Stephan Riess has passed away, but Paul Power is the one that's carrying the torch. He's retired. He's not feeling that well. He's got ill health. And they actually didn't get too much from him. So they've been researching on their own through different means of how to find this water. There's all kinds of like technology surrounding it with satellites, seismic Geiger counters, infrared cameras, all kinds of technology, besides the simple dowsing or witching that we know of that anybody can learn how to do. But it was interesting talking to these people. They supposedly are the best or the foremost experts right now. They've got drilling operations all over the world, and including Kenya and other countries. So they're a source of information. But let me play the video, the last part of this video interview with Dr. Stephan Riess, who has brought out the concept and idea and actually did drill for primary water and found it. So I'm going to play the rest of this here.
If enough of the wells that you're finding were drilled here, California could be perpetually independent of water being transported from any other state.
That's what I'm driving at.
Yes, of course.
There's no question. I've got the geological structure to do just that. That's not a problem.
Are you of the opinion that if the politicians had had the final say, the world would still be flat?
I suppose so. Because 90% are nothing but con men that just say yes, yes, because somebody told them to do so.
Yes. And you know for a fact that all of the billions of dollars that have been spent in bringing water in is merely bringing silt from one place in the country to the other place in the country.
That's right, and make a hell of a lot of money for the big land and ranch.
But that's extremely expensive silt, isn't it? Now, the water that's in those canals that are being brought down from the Colorado River is continuously deteriorating water because it's picking up soluble elements out of the surface as it comes along, isn't it?
No question.
At a much more accelerated rate because the sun or the solar heat is accelerating that precipitation, isn't it?
And because that water is running in open canals without any concrete bottom.
Yes.
40–50% seeps away on the way.
40%.
Well,
a lot.
That's what they claim, 40 to 50%.
And some of it is being taken off the top in evaporation.
And then, of course, evaporation, naturally. There is no question about
So the
that.
evaporation alone would make that water poorer quality.
Yes. Now the whole thing is absolute childish. If it wasn't for the greed of some people, ignoring the welfare of anybody and everything, we wouldn't be in such a mess. If we had politicians with any brought up intelligence or education or being made aware of, it couldn't happen.
Anyway, your experience has shown you that you have to go on your own and not be influenced by political opinions anyway, and you're simply producing beautiful, clear, potable water out of 2,000 feet below the Earth's surface, water that could only come from the source that you've identified many years ago.
Found in the mines.
And in fact, you now have beautiful, potable water, regardless of what the scientists, the engineers, or the politicians are
Don't mean
saying.
a damn thing.
It's very hard for them to refute the fact
They
that their
have to.
theories are good when they find your water the way it is, isn't it?
But that bunch of legislature, 8 out of 10, wouldn't know what you're talking about on water. They just, I told you, you'd vote yes, whatever side they're on.
Maybe they would be better able to help you if it were whiskey that you were finding,
Oh, they would, sure. Providing they found a market for it.
providing they found them. Or all that they could not consume themselves that they could find a market for.
You know, you have to marvel about the welfare of society being so damn insecure when you come right down to
Yes,
it.
indeed.
Extremely insecure. We see that now, right now in Mexico today. You take those high-rise in Los Angeles and New York, 101 story, when they collapse, there is no chance to get in and find anybody in a month's time. There's a pile of rubble there.
Yes. So
And
our society is very fragile and
Oh, yes.
delicately balanced.
And many of those high-rises have 10 and 15,000 people working in there every day.
So if the earthquake happens during the middle of a working day,
You find nobody
no one
on
would
that
be-
big stuff. Because the pile of rubble was so high, you can't get in, start digging or do anything.
And the water systems are destroyed in natural
And the gas line break
disasters of that nature.
underground.
And so the availability of your water would be there regardless of whether earthquakes occurred or not.
That's right.
And it would even be there if nuclear testing in Russia was accelerated.
Wouldn't hurt us.
It wouldn't change your water quality at all, would it?
No.
So
never.
we might survive being in the western side of Russia's test area simply because of this beautiful potable water that you're
What-
able to produce.
What they don't kill off by the explosive.
Yes, but I mean, we are the recipient of all the fallout
right.
from Russia's experiments because we're on the western side of the experiments.
We get the least of it.
Yes,
It's going east. The natural currents.
the upper air currents are flowing
East.
east,
Going east.
but we're east of Russia,
I know that.
and so we're getting a lot of their test fallout, aren't we?
No.
We're not?
No. It would have to come around first.
Ah,
See? Anything from here goes over the Atlantic and across. When they had that damn trouble here with the
That's never done the atomic testing off the
Right.
islands out there.
Russia got the works. They had
Those are
over
currents.
22,000 dead there.
Because of the high altitude currents.
From Asia. Northern Siberia is going to get the big part of it.
in the event of nuclear explosions, this water would remain safe and potable.
Oh, naturally. What's left wouldn't have anything to worry. That water is always good then. The only water that could possibly be contaminated is the lake.
Surface water
The springs they form.
and reservoirs.
The reservoirs. But you never heard the deep water. Never reach it.
Radiation can't penetrate that deep
No,
through
it
that.
doesn't go that deep.
Are you able to connect up the early days of your life when you went and saw those wells along the castles overlooking the Rhine River? And
Well, that's when I woke up as a youngster about his age.
Mhm.
See, it impressed me, that's all. I realized that it took these people 50 and 80 years digging
And they were digging down through solid granite,
No, usually everything, like
conglomerate. And
absolute resilicification of original sedimentation. They had a lot of that. Granite a lot, yes.
But very solid material, and they were digging down through it.
Hard rock.
And so in here there was those wells were dug hundreds of years ago, and they're still very, very.
Well, the first one started digging about 930
930 AD.
under Charlemagne.
No, about 1,000 years ago.
Just about 1,000 years ago.
And they've been and the wells are still completely usable and
Absolutely.
excellent water.
One of the most recent ones was in Edinburgh,
Scotland.
yeah, where the Queen Elizabeth Castle up there.
Yes, Edinburgh Castle.
That went down about 1,500.
High on a solid rock
Basalt,
promontory.
just a basalt. And around is the salt water, high tide and low tide water.
Not affecting it at all. How deep is that, 1,500 feet?
No, about 11, 12 I heard.
11 or 1,200 feet. Down below, well below the surface of the salt
Oh,
water.
way below. The salt water is just a deep marsh. A marsh, they call it. Very, very shallow. Couldn't get a deep ship in there either, just boats. No.
It's been an hour.
The water business has to change like a religion, and that's hard.
Yes, because
is
its
hard.
deep-seated beliefs are deeper than the water, in fact.
On the other hand, I begin to see where we cut through the wall, the need for water is to our advantage. Or we wouldn't have a leg to stand on.
Yes, like our need for good air and
Right.
good food.
If it wasn't for the absolute need, the worry of running out, they would spend billions to put sewage treatment in. Everything. But that isn't enough.
The water that's being used, the surface water that's being used
Yeah.
in parts of the California agricultural regions
Yeah.
is collecting soluble elements at such a rate
Too much, sure.
that, and also the sprays that are being put on it are being
It's
absorbed
ruining,
into the
it's
water.
ruining agriculture.
And the agricultural areas themselves are being destroyed because of this poor grade
And
surface
ruin
water.
it. A certain area, I understand, the grapes went sour. They had to get rid of them.
Yes, and in another area they were letting the outflow from the fields, which they flooded to irrigate them, flow into a marsh, and all of the life in the marsh was destroyed.
That's right.
So as you predicted, the surface water is not improving, but getting worse and worse as time goes on.
Bound to.
And your water is getting better and better because
See,
it doesn't have any contamination
We are
in it at all.
washing the damn thing over, and every time cycling it, it gets dirtier.
One of the solutions that the Department of Water and Power has in that report that I showed you that we got recently, this is a long-term plan that some of the Department of Water and Power is planning on to avoid some of the water shortages that they've got. They want to bring in excess water and store it in the, like you had discussed the other
The
day, in
existing
the wells
wells.
up in San Fernando Valley.
Yes.
Well, it seems to me that, you're just going to be contaminating all that water that you're bringing in and putting in the
Exactly,
wells.
because
the
the wells are
already
being contaminated. all
Oh,
the time.
sure. The whole thing is silly. It's absolutely silly. We either got to stop wasting on using the population to finish it up too fast, or slow down agriculture completely. It's all
The
over.
wells that you did for California City, which are still hammering away there,
Oh, full blast.
full blast, which is now what, almost 20 years ago, over
More.
20 years ago, over 20 years ago. Those wells were producing beautiful potable water,
They still are.
and still are.
Yeah.
Before you drilled those wells in there, they told you there was no water available at all, did they not?
Well, not only that, they prevented the California City Company from selling any land or do any building for 5 years.
Because of lack of water.
The lack of water. Because there were no pipeline. You see, they let him fool around for 2 years with the city of Los Angeles, the metropolitan water, to get it cut in on that line coming down from Bishop. Well, they played around too. The lawyers had a hell of a good time, I suppose, for a couple of years, meeting after meeting after meeting. Nothing happened. Then we went and approached the water resources, And they said no, they wouldn't bring any water in from the Bakersfield area over there, what they call that, Tehachapi country.
Tehachapi country.
They couldn't afford it. There is not enough demand or income from it.
It wasn't economically feasible.
That's right. Then I shoved that hole down. I drilled 5, 6 wells there, and then I put a big one down where the government had said the test wells to them had proven an impossibility. And that was right out in the center there, where the lake is now, on the golf course. And
how could you have made that lake without water?
Well, naturally, they admitted that. But then, of course, it lasted for about 6 months. Oh, it'll pump off, you got a small pocket, yo. So I argued with the bastards up in the water resources. They sent me up there. And I said, you goddamn well know that locked-in water, closed-in water, would immediately disintegrate by the absorption of all and the destruction of all the mineral constituents. Well, yeah, but there is a lot of it there, and you'll get that pretty quick. So nothing happens there. Then after 5 years, they went and sued them, brought a suit in the courts. They figured there'd be too much publicity on this. And
So they dropped it.
They dropped it and gave them a permit to start selling lots, building homes, and what have you.
They didn't want to go into court and admit that they'd been wrong, that you hadn't pumped out all your water in 5 years, and still 15 years later you're still pumping water.
That's correct, and we had water to waste. I had 3 wells then on the tap, going up, one a waterfall and lake, and the other 2 for residential and house use and whatever there was.
What quality was that water?
First class.
First class.
Very high class water.
And still is very good.
It still is, and it had him baffled. And they're baffled yet, because it's against their religion.
Maybe they started baffled, do you think?
Well, they were naturally stupid, but the point is that this upset him more. See?
But it doesn't upset you to think that they were wrong.
No, I must look. No, I knew they would be. Hell, what's a me? It's like you and I trying to convert to one of those fanatic Muslims today.
Yeah.
That's ready to drive an automobile with 500-pound explosives into a gate or somewhere.
There are none so blind as those that will not see.
That's right.
And you have shown these people that in addition to the bumblebee, which theoretically cannot fly,
That's right.
Stephan Riess can find water where there is no water.
That's right.
But the water is there and it's flowing, and Stephan Riess did find it.
Did I ever give you a report from Jerusalem?
No, I've never seen that report, but you've told me about the well.
I've got a
He's
copy.
got
of
it.
it. I can get
Copy
it
of the
for you.
You had 1,000 gallons a minute in those wells.
Oh,
in
yeah.
But you feel that it was entirely a political thing on the Jordan River that made them deny the fact that
Well,
water
they had
was
to.
there. Yes. Well,
You see.
they felt they had to. They felt they had to not tell the truth about it. But then it was too late, wasn't it?
No,
Because
they had to tell half story. They had to tell
not the whole truth.
not the whole truth. They had to tell the wells are bad and they're dependent upon.
But it was too late, wasn't it? Because they'd already publicized it all over the country, and it had gotten as far away as Saudi Arabia.
But several years later, they admitted in the United Nations meeting at The Hague in Holland that the wells have gone to saltwater.
Uh-huh.
Intrusion from the Dead Sea,
Uh-huh.
or Red Sea,
Red Sea. Oh.
which 2 years ago, a lawyer in
Low.
Washington
Wasn't it Low?
Low,
I think it was Low that was there.
went and investigated and saw the editor of the newspaper who used to be a newspaper man in Washington at one time. And they told him the whole story.
Political influence can do terrible things to the truth and reality. Now, you're continuing, although you independently found it, you're continuing a theory that was started by a Swedish scientist many, many years ago, who was also nominated for a Nobel Prize.
Yeah, but he died before. He drilled 17 holes on the offshore islands where the lighthouses were, starting in solid
On the coast of
granite.
Sweden.
And in that country, they had a big problem to keep water from freezing in the winter times. So he drilled those wells, and he invariably hid water in the granite. Now, they were small little 4-inch and 6-inch holes, but he proved the water there.
And proved this theory of the
And the continuity and the type of water, see? Well, what happened, the Swedish scientist, who was one of the highest ranking geologists in his day, his father was the superintendent of the mines in Finland that were mining ore from under the ocean beds. And they had fresh water under the ocean in the iron mine. See?
Again proving the theory.
So his father kept arguing with him. He said, now how can we get fresh water
under the ocean surface?
Under the ocean surface. Where does it come from? And then Nordenskjöld was his name. He began to use his brain power and got to working it over, you know.
He was dead before you developed your science, though.
He died in 1904.
1904, yes. So many years before you began.
Oh, I know nothing. Hell, I was born in 98.
In 1898, yes. So the theory is still as good today as it was then, because that hasn't changed.
See what happened when we got finally to negotiate the damn thing and got to arguing. Salzman, the professor teaching at that time in Los Angeles, wrote that book with me. He followed me for about 2 years, and the wells I drilled all over. I didn't know I had that damn many till lately, checking.
800 and some odd wells around how many countries? Over 50 countries in the world.
Somewhere like that, yeah. So he came to that information by having 2 students from Norway at his class.
Do the research for
Yeah, and one of them came and said, oh, I read about one of our old-timer geologists. He was of that same opinion, and there's a book out on him. He brought the book in, and they translated it. He was a North Pole geologist, very famous for his North Pole work. So, there you are.
So that was Dr. Stephan Riess, and the traditional science community still does not acknowledge primary water generally. The hydrologists don't. They claim like there's underground volcanic lakes and supplying the aquifers or this and that to rationalize the water that's being drilled for and coming up as pure water, etc. So there's a lot of, it's really not being researched that much. So it's kind of interesting looking into this because not very many people are really aware of it even. This lady I talked to yesterday, she went to Kenya to talk to somebody who had been trained by Paul Power, an African. But she was disappointed because all he had was, ley lines and geographical kind of indicators where the water supposedly was underground water. And she was expecting a little bit more information. And there's really not a lot out there about how to find it or what it is still. So it's kind of, to me, it's exciting to kind of pursue this and see where it goes. So I'll be looking at it now and then and report back when I can. But of course, there's other sources of water, fresh water. There's this solar company in Kenya that I mentioned before that's filtering salt water and making it potable. And You can filter water, even salt water. There's ways to filter it. There's all kinds of technologies still to filter the aquifer water that is polluted. So there's technologies out there. You don't necessarily have to go for primary water, but it's one source. There's if the government really allowed people to, and the inventors and the people looking into this to pursue what they're doing with finding and making pure water available, it would be, it would be like there for people. But as it is with all the restrictions, it's not happening. And that's it for me for this. So any comments, Kevin, before you go on?
Well, as he said, I mean, he would suggest that the situation was due to the politicians' ignorance or stupidity, but of course, as we know, that isn't really the factor. It's more by design than by accident or unawareness. Of course, the control system managing everything as it does, I mean, the idea is they want everybody to be dependent on them, and certainly the three main things which will demand dependency will, of course, be water, food, and air. So, of course, they've got to get complete control over that as the human experience continues to roll out. And like the individual was saying, problem is if you do bring the primary water up, then there's a very good chance it will be contaminated, and as soon as it hits the surface, according to the environment that it comes up in, and they are continuously and consistently, the controllers radiating the planet with their so-called accidental nuclear power plant disasters, which are probably anything but accidental for the same reason, continued contamination of the surface world and all the water, and of course that then feeds into ultimately their depopulation agendas, as everything becomes so contaminated to the extent that nothing living can really survive. And so unless they become more technologically infused, which then goes into their agenda and project for transhumanism and such. But we had a situation here in Leighton Buzzard. It wasn't a big deal really, but about several months ago, there was a problem with the water pipe or something here, and it made it so the entire town had no access to water anymore. And so just that simple example alone, it indicates how dependent people are on all their structures and all their structure and all their pipelines and all their water companies and such. And so if there is any sort of event or anything that disrupts that, well, then you don't have water. And so obviously with wells, that will have an inexhaustible supply of primary water coming through them if they're dug to the correct length and in the correct location, would eliminate any sort of dependency on any external companies. So, and then you wouldn't have any trouble with pipes and such, what have you. But yeah, on the topic of water, I heard of this individual before. He was a Japanese scientist called Dr. Masaru Emoto, and he did a study on water, and I thought it was quite interesting.
There's a guy in Japan, Mr. Emoto, I spent a long weekend with last year, talked to him about all this stuff, and saw him again recently. He's the man that developed this process of freezing water and then photographing the water crystals, which appear for a short time. And so by making different words and vibrational frequencies, by connecting it to the water, like putting words of hate or love on the side of the tank, then freezing it and then photographing it, he's been able to see the different effects of these different emotions upon reality. And this is a water crystal that was from a tank that had the words of love and appreciation on it. This is one that had the words hate all over it. It's a very different energetic structure. And it's this one that these entities want to absorb, therefore what they want us to produce. This again is the love and appreciation. This is a water crystal that had where the tank of water or the receptacle of water had a mobile phone tied to it.
So this is Dr. Masaru Emoto. Dr. Masaru Emoto, the Japanese scientist who revolutionized the idea that our thoughts and intentions impact the physical realm, is one of the most important water researchers the world has known for over 20 years until he passed away in 2014. He studied the scientific evidence of how the molecular structure in water transforms when it is exposed to human words, thoughts, sounds, and intentions. The extraordinary life work of Dr. Emoto is documented in the New York Times bestseller, The Hidden Messages in Water. In his book, Dr. Emoto demonstrates how water exposed to loving, benevolent, and compassionate human intention results in aesthetically pleasing physical molecular formations in the water, while water exposed to fearful and discordant human intentions results in disconnected, disfigured, and unpleasant physical molecular formations. He did this through magnetic resonance analysis technology and high-speed photographs. His research also showed us how polluted and toxic water, when exposed to prayer and intention, can be altered and restored to beautifully formed geometric crystals found in clean, healthy water. Dr. Emoto also studied how sound affects water. The Emoto music studies demonstrate how certain types of sound, like classical music, generate beautiful crystalline patterns, while heavy metal music, generally ugly and distorted crystalline formations. Dr. Masaru Emoto put water as a living consciousness on the map for the scientific world. He showed us how water is an energy capable of more than we ever imagined. The power human thoughts, sounds, and intentions has to strengthen and disempower is one of the greatest discoveries of our time. His work has us question: if water is affected by the words, intentions, and energies, what about human beings who are made of mostly water? If we transform the water and thoughts we are made of, what else is possible? There are legions of scientists who have built upon the breakthroughs of Dr. Emoto and are offering practical technologies for everyday life. One such example, who is particularly inspiring, is the Austrian engineer Bernhard Rathausser. Since 1994, he has developed devices that restructure water molecules and assist water in being its highest vibration as living energy. With vortexing and sacred geometry, along with nature's energies through precious stones, Bernhard Rathausser has created a way for water to be revitalized when it passes through one of his water structuring devices. Every measurement in his beautiful devices is designed to evoke the energy of the cosmos and realign water with the energy of creation. When water passes through his devices, everything life-supporting in the water is enhanced, energy increases, memory is erased, and toxins are energetically neutralized. We live in exciting times when new technologies like water structuring devices are making it easy for us to access water's highest vibration. Our understanding of the natural world is moving to new levels as technology embraces the truth of structured water science with sacred geometry, vortexing, and gemstones. Thanks to the work of Dr. Masaru Emoto, we now know what is possible when we consider water as a living consciousness. You can also follow the work of Michiko Hayashi, the global director of the Emoto Peace Project, who lectures all over the world and continues to spread his legacy. There are now many scientists diving deeper into what's possible with the energy of water.
Well, there's another structuring, along with filtering water that's poisoned or polluted, radiated. I mean, there's so much there, potential that we can utilize with these people that are doing the research on it. Maybe we don't have to drill 2,000 feet to find water. We can, utilize what we have. If we can filter it and restructure it. But there's so much to do. Yeah, there's the antidotes for even the vaccines. I was looking at somebody who came up with, the graphite oxide that's in the vaccines that's enabling. It's like a magnet, enabling the 5G, etc., to do its harm to the body. You can offset that with antioxidants and different things. He proved this, a Spanish fellow that proved that you can use Oh, I forget the name of it. Zinc was one, but there's two others that are used to counter the harmful effects of the metals in the vaccine. So it's like catch up. Like, can people like do this fast enough before they destroy the earth and our bodies? Looks like they're ahead of things, you know, in terms of, because they got the control factor too, and they got the agreement of people, but they're ahead of schedule in terms of destroying the planet. So we have a lot of catching up to do, but we got to do something here to offset this. So that's why we're here. That's interesting. I've heard of, I know about Emoto for a long time. That's interesting. What is there, you know, what he's found and what the potential is with water and how it's a living substance, and it's very key here to the planet. So thanks for that report.
Yeah, because it's interesting as he was speaking. It's basically, yeah, he was saying it's geometry and frequency that can either disharmonize or harmonize. And even though we can use the technologies such as geometrical shapes, which would be a simulated expression of a frequency, also the very thoughts that we generate would also produce the same frequencies, either harmonious or disharmonious. So it may not even be necessarily a case we have to have great technological devices in order to purify or harmonize water or anything. It might simply be a case that if the consciousness of humanity can switch to a more harmonious state that isn't so abrasively attitude driven, and take on more the attitudes, the tenets that Duane always speaks of, which align you most effectively with the true reality, which is sincerity, gratitude, and honor and integrity and purity, if they can be embraced more so and incorporated more so in the consciousness, and displace the ones that are obviously on the opposite end of the what we'd call the frequency spectrum, is very likely this will have a harmonizing effect through the world and indeed the simulator anyway, and it might naturally just restore everything to its harmonious life-supporting state of being. So
This is creation, so we can create what we will here, but it takes agreement, and agreement right now is not looking good for the planet. So there's a lot of people waking up. Let's see if we can do it. See what we can do. Do you have a short one still, or you have like 9 minutes or so? Anything else?
Dr. Masaru Emoto on human consciousness and water. Dr. Masaru Emoto, the Japanese scientist and water researcher, revealed the true nature of water and how thoughts and vibrations affect the molecular structure of water in his years of water research. Through high-speed photography of thousands of water crystals, Dr. Emoto has shown the most beautiful crystals are those formed after the water is exposed to the words love and gratitude. The fact that the human body is made of 70% water, our thoughts can have profound implications on our health and the well-being of the planet. He discovered that water from clear springs and water that has been exposed to loving words shows brilliant, complex, and colourful snowflake patterns, while water from polluted sources or water exposed to negative thoughts forms incomplete, asymmetrical patterns with dull colours. Fractal enlightenment had the opportunity to interview Dr. Emoto, where he talks about the responsive nature of water to human emotions, which can be utilized to heal mankind and earth, the holy water of river Ganges, and high vibrations of hemp to combat nuclear radiations in Fukushima. Question 1. What sparked your interest to discover the mystery of water? Dr. Emoto. First of all, I was using water with information to cure people's diseases, and it gained a lot of good results. However, generally, people did not believe that, because they do not believe what they cannot see. I was thinking how I can make this visible, and one day I found a book about snowflake crystals, and I thought that this is it. Snowflake is basically water, so I thought if I freeze the water and use a microscope to see the insides of a water molecule, I could capture something in there. So I came up with the water crystal technology. Question 2. You mentioned that you used water with information to cure people's diseases, and it gained a lot of good results. How can water be used to cure diseases, and what kind of diseases? Dr. Emoto. I used vibrational measuring devices called MRA, which can measure negative emotional vibration that a human has, and when it is detected, opposite vibration can be added to the water, and by drinking that water, the negative feeling will go away. Question 3. How do positive thoughts affect us, the environment we live in, and the planet as a whole? Dr. Emoto. Positive words, photos, and prayers can make water create beautiful hexagonal water crystals, but negative ones will create ugly-looking water crystals. Any living creature is made out of water, and even minerals and the planet itself are the same. So the positive thoughts can make any related things beautiful and harmonized. Question 4. In this fast-paced world, when people are stuck in a routine, how do you think people can maintain a positive outlook? Dr. Emoto. Let your actions be based on the thoughts of love and gratitude. Love is a giving energy, and gratitude is a receiving energy. If you always have these two words in your mind, and your actions are based on these concepts, you can naturally give people positive energy. Question 5. What are the basic differences in the crystalline structure of water? Dr. Emoto. In order to improve the conductivity of information, there needs to be geometric designs with golden proportions that can be seen in pyramids. In the case of water, its water structure shows superimposed pyramids three-dimensionally, and the more perfect it is, the more beautiful hexagonal water crystals it becomes. Question 6. In India, the holy river of Ganga, one of the polluted rivers in the country, has high levels of toxic pollutants. But in spite of that, thousands of devotees bathe in the Ganga each day with the belief that it prevents diseases. Do you think the positive thoughts of devotees affects the holy Gangas to an extent that it prevents large-scale epidemics? Research has also stated that Ganges has special self-purifying properties. Do you think the molecular structure of a river Ganges might be distorted, but yet have some healing vibration? Dr. Emoto: I think God created water with love as an active energy and gratitude as a passive energy. Water in the river Ganges is sacred, and it is God's water for Hindu people, so the water contains lots of love and gratitude for them. Therefore, with these positive thoughts, water in the river Ganges, which is physically polluted, can become holy water. However, if Japanese tourists drink that water, they would immediately get sick. I would also imagine that if a pious Hindu learned how to take water crystal photos, they would get the most beautiful looking water crystals from the water in river Ganges. Question 7. Critics claim that your work is pseudoscience and doubt the process behind it. What is your response to such statements? Dr. Emoto: current science exists in a three-dimensional world, but the world of water is multi-dimensional, and I believe water crystals that I research on is in the world of the fourth and fifth dimension, so they can say my research is a pseudo-science in lower dimensions, but I hope it to be called parascience. Question 8. I came across a video of you on the planting of hemp at Fukushima because of its high vibration levels. What is the effect of hemp's vibrations? Dr. Emoto: radiations exist in the world of vibration, and hemp is also a plant in the world of vibration, which has a high frequency. Hemp represents a positive plant, and with using its high frequency, hemp can activate the polluted soils of Fukushima in a positive way. Question 9. Are you currently doing any new research work that you would like to share with us? Dr. Emoto: now my focus is issues in Fukushima. I already have technology and water to protect from nuclear radiations. It is more like activity, but I make this water and send it to people and children in Fukushima. Question 10. What technology do you plan to use in Fukushima? Dr. Emoto: it is the technology that was invented by Russian scientists, and it is the water technology to combat against nuclear radiations. Question 11. What are your views on 2012 and what effect will it have on the human race or our planet as a whole? Dr. Emoto, I believe when the true education for water prevails anywhere in the world, the condition for the planet will be livable. Otherwise, a lot of natural disasters like tsunami and floods will happen, resulting in a lot of sacrifices of human lives. Dr. Masaru Emoto was a renowned researcher who had gained worldwide acclaim by showing how water is deeply connected to our individual and collective consciousness. Born in Japan, he was a graduate of the Yokohama Municipal University's Department of Humanities and Sciences with a focus on international relations. In 1992, he received certification from the Open International University as a Doctor of Alternative Medicine. Dr. Emoto is the author of several best-selling books, including The Hidden Messages in Water, The True Power of Water, and The Secret Life of Water. He headed the worldwide Heido Instructor School, where he taught the ancient principle of Heido, or life force vibration.
Okay, speaking of vibrations, try the NUUU. We'll end with that. Thank you, Kevin. NUUU. Thank you. See you next week.